Brian, try 3. Had to plug it in as a webcam. Seems to be working, but then it was unlisted. So, yeah.
Oh.
Hi, I'm trying again. I had just done a previous stream, so which none of you saw, it was unlisted. But hello, I'm Odin, and this is my attempt at doing a live stream. This is going to be a work in progress. What I'm working on is the axe from Assassin's Creed. Specifically, I picked out the axe that's in his left hand in all of the artwork. He's pretty much Florentine axe, I guess. Is that appropriate mix of terms? In his right hand is a very traditional looking Viking style axe to my knowledge. I like the one that's in his left hand, which is a little bit different, and that's the one that I want to make. So what I've got here in front of me is a printout that I've made that is about, well, this is the size that I want it to be. I went through some 4K pictures and box art, and as well as still grabs from the cinematic trailer, and managed to Photoshop together this version of the axe, and then I scaled it so the handle is the same thickness as the wooden dowel that I want to use for a handle. So that's pretty much my plan, and since I have a 100% sized image here, I can just easily pull my dimensions off of this. The first thing I should probably do is cut the wood down. But oh, look, there are people here this time. Hey, it works so much better when you do a live stream and you actually make it public. Hi guys, how's it going? You trying to say? Honestly, this will work better. Probably when Joe's over here watching some of this or throwing, but that's up to him. He's trying to get something done too. Joe from all the Gundam videos, he actually just walked into the shop, so I'm not by myself today. But I don't know if he has interest in doing any of this, or he's got work he's got to get done too.
I actually need to grab a ruler.
Well, yeah, grab a ruler. But I'm actually recording all this as well. So this will be edited down and will become part of next week's video. Of course, all this talking here won't be here. But hello, I'm Odin, and today is a work in progress on making the Assassin's Creed axe. I said that once already, but I'm saying it again. Can I go through and see anything in here? I'm seeing lots of people compliment me and tell me thank you. Here's one of the things that many of you might know and may not know. And there it is. I am actually nearsighted. I can't see the computer. Oh, now I can. Now I can read the computer. I don't wear my glasses typically because when I started doing this, the lights would reflect off my glasses back into the camera and all you would see is white. At this setup, it looks like I'm doing okay and I don't need to worry about that anymore, but out of habit, I just don't wear glasses anymore. I've got now that I can get an optometrist appointment, I have one in a couple of weeks to try and get contacts so I can not only see what I'm working on, but see far enough I can read the computer. Now this will be fun. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to make a mark where I want to cut my wood, and I'm going to walk over to the bandsaw. And that should be lovely on the microphone, so I'll probably be hitting mute for a quick second.
I love how you just said that you're nearsighted and that you have trouble seeing, and then you're going to go to bandsaw.
So if you can't hear Joe, he's laughing about how I just talked about going to the optometrist. I just talked about being nearsighted and how I can't see, and now I'm going to go to the bandsaw. Well, for those of you who aren't aware, nearsighted means I can see everything from about here closer. That is in perfect focus. I can see my computer monitor. I just can't read the tiny text. I can actually see the clock, and I know what time it is because I know how a clock is laid out. It's an analog clock with hands, but I can't actually read the numbers. Those are just outside of my ability to see. So I'm good for about an arm's length. It's quite entertaining. I do not recommend poor vision. If you wear glasses, you can do this cool anime thing where light covers your eyes and you can talk edgingly. Yeah, I suppose I could. Let's see. What if I try doing this not with a bandsaw, just to torture myself? Come here. So it's one of those projects that I wondered to myself when I was looking at it, can I do it without power tools? Because a lot of you seem to really like it when I'm doing a project that doesn't require power tools. But honestly, I'm intending on cutting down some of the scraps of the kneeling pads left over from the Gundam build to make the body of the axe, and I'm going to be, or actually I already have, used the bandsaw to do that. So, and then I wanted to spin the point here, same thing. I'll take a piece of that foam, chuck it into my drill or the drill press, and take a piece of sandpaper to it, and then spin it like some sort of simplistic foam lathe in order to, come here, yeah. Why do you use a bandsaw, I wonder? In order to get that shape. Just in case this is too loud, I'm gonna hit mute. So this is me doing this intentionally. Oh, look, I'm done, as opposed to playing with this thing. Why do I use power tools? That's why. I can do it with this or any other random handsaw, but done. So the main thing I want to do first is work on the axe head. That was kind of the primary goal of right now. I plan on being on for about 2 hours. What I've got are pieces left over from the kneeling pad. This is scrap from building the Gundam feet. There's plenty of it, so why not use this? Decided to make a wedge shape, so I'm gonna need to glue those together, then cut them to fit, and then I'll take a bit of 6mm HD foam and lay that on either side of the axe head. So it's gonna be a small bit of a process, but we'll get to a paint glue. I get to enjoy the fumes. Sorry, you guys kind of can't, I suppose. And then I'll try and pay attention. I'll try to pay attention to the chat while the glue is drying. One of the things that I really liked about this particular axe, as well as, and I say this a lot, just not usually on camera, I like this axe because it doesn't light up. It doesn't transform. It doesn't like sing or do anything crazy. It's just, it's a metal axe on a wooden handle. So I'm hopeful that I can get this done a little bit faster than the last couple of projects I've been working on, especially like the feet, so I can get caught up on the Gundam legs. And also, next week, I'm supposed to be streaming with a British group called Yours Truly. I don't know exactly what platform that's going to be on, but right now we're talking about making that happen on Thursday, and it's going to be a Magic the Gathering build. And I'm kind of excited about that, but I need time to get that done as well. So I will have more details about that on Monday. Right now, literally, that's all I know, and that's what you know. But I'm told it's a green light. I'm told it's going to happen. So I'm not concerned about advertising it now and having it not fall through. But that's going to be Thursday, June 4th at 5 p.m. British Standard Time. So it's like 9 a.m. for me. I should make Rescue's helmet from Endgame. Issa, wow, sorry, I can't pronounce it right now. Hey, and I had a problem with my contact cement opening up from heat when I bend it. Any way to avoid that? Contact cement opening up from heat when you bend it. Interesting. No, not that I'm aware of. I've seen times when I'm using contact cement on foam that the first, like I'm kind of seeing it right now, and Evil Ted's talked about this too. The first layer goes in the foam and it seems to almost be absorbed by the foam. It kind of disappears. So what he's been doing and what I've done anytime I'm going to do anything that's going to have some stress put behind it is do a second coat over the first one. So the first coat's kind of a primer. And then you do a second coat that sits on top of it. And that second coat doesn't sink in the way the first one does. And I'm hopeful that maybe that would help you. It also might be the contact cement. I know not all contact cements are created equal. I'm using the DAP Weldwood because it's the best bang for the buck that I can get here in California. Undoubtedly, Barge is the best of the contact cements, but a quart of Barge costs the same as a gallon of DAP, and so that's why I'm using DAP. And yeah, I would probably still be using 2 coats of Barge. So it's not like I'm using more DAP to make up for it. Even if I was, it's still cheaper. But remember talking to a shoe repairman. One point, there was a kiosk when I was working at Sears a million years ago. He was showing me that Barge is what he would use. And he would use to resole shoes, right, to correct work shoes. And he also talked about how he worked on a couple of Hollywood movies just making prop shoes. And you do with the leather upper, a really simple leather upper, but for the soles, it was just cork. It would just be sheets of cork with a little bit of texture on the bottom, a little bit of grippy something, so it wasn't a total slipping mess. But just having to make custom colored and styled shoes that match what the design was. It's nice and warm in California today, so this is setting up pretty quickly. Close my mouth. I'm pretty sure that's not at me. Ty asks, how long do I have to wait for glue to dry? Depends on the temperature and probably humidity. Not a whole long, not a long time, not a whole long time, something like that. I can see it because I'm used to looking for it. Also, I've got a good light reflection for myself here off of the glue. But what I'm looking for is for it not to look wet anymore. When you put it on, sometimes it's even got almost a puddle to it. So yeah, it's kind of an okay shot. I can tell that this is wet. When it starts to dry, it just starts to get a little less wet looking. Really sounds like a stupid answer, but that's kind of the best I can say. And the idea is it gets sticky like 2 halves of a paper label, right? So you got a sticky label and a sticky label, and you stick them together. That's kind of what you're going for. Trayvon Walker is asking, how long have I been a YouTuber? Well, with my own channel, all by my little self, about 3.5 years. I also worked with DIY Prop Shop for 1.5 years prior to that. That was where I started doing this type of instructional crafty video. And even prior to that, I was working with Smosh as an art director. So I built a lot of the sets and a good number of the props for Smosh from like 2014 to 2017, practically, or 2016, somewhere there. Was 2 or 3 years I worked for Smosh. And then prior to all of that, I worked for a company called Play Incorporated. This back in the 90s when the world was still using 56K dial-up and standard definition video. HD video was just starting to pop up. Play Incorporated made a product that allowed live streaming over the internet. And so I was part of the experiment for that, which was ran about 2 years. One of the things I got to do with Play Incorporated was stand in line for Star Wars Episode 1, which was, 1999? So I spent 6 weeks on the street corner there of, by the Chinese theater, where those streets are, I can't remember right now, because they needed someone there overnight. About 3 a.m, 2 a.m, all the people who were in line would just go to sleep in their tents, and all the gear would sit on the sidewalk unattended. So I did the night shift. I would come down about 8, 9 at night, and I would work until about 8 or 10 in the morning when everybody was finally up, and then I would go over to my hotel and go to sleep. Did that for 6 weeks. So I got paid to stand in line for Star Wars because we were streaming it live on the internet. InRays is asking if I can make some Destiny 2 guns in the future. I would love to. I know that video games are big on guns, and I'll be honest, I like guns. I'm big on blasters. YouTube is not. It is not fun as a creator to go through, like, say, the Doom shotgun, right? To go through all the effort of putting together the video for this Doom shotgun that obviously isn't a real firearm, put it up on YouTube, and then all of a sudden YouTube decides, oh, this is a gun, and it becomes restricted monetization, and it becomes restricted to who they're going to suggest it to in their in you as a viewer of your video stream. So the numbers for that were crazy for about 2.5 hours, and then it plateaued, and it's just been plateaued since. And yeah, So it becomes really rough as someone who does this as a way of paying my rent, to put all the effort into a video. I only get one a week, right? And then for it to not perform and not come back. So I'm actually going to be shying away from guns, unfortunately, because YouTube forces me to. Blasters, I'm going to work on that. Anything that's science fiction that can avoid the keywords seem to be okay, because the Han Solo blaster is okay. The Boba Fett blaster is okay. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe at some point in the future, YouTube will relax again on fake guns, and I'll be able to do more. Angie DeStanfini is saying, shout out. So Angie, this is the best I can do because I happen to catch it as it goes by. The chat is flying by far faster than I can read. I can barely get through leaning down, squinting to try and read this tiny text before it's off screen. But hello there, Angie. Ryan Weed is asking, hey, Odin, what is your connection with GWAR? My connection with GWAR is hardcore fan. And really, that's about it. There was a period of time there in the mid to late 90s that myself and a couple of friends were making GWAR costumes for Halloween. And really, that's all it was. This is before I ever heard the term cosplay. We were all friends from Rocky Horror Picture Show, so the idea of making elaborate costumes and wearing them around was normal for us. So honestly, we just started doing that because it looked like Muppets and it looked like fun. My interest in their shows and the music came after I started making the costumes because I was part of the group, part of my local group, not part of the actual GWAR group doing it. So my connection to the band is fan, and really that's it. Because of the costumes, I got to meet Hunter Jackson backstage when they came to the Warfield in San Francisco. This was 98, 99, because the band had heard of us after a few years of doing this, and as well as my friend Sloan, I'm sure he directly contacted GWAR anyway. So we actually got to go backstage, got to talk to him only. We went before the show. The rest of the band was out getting lunch or just not being in the bus because they were on tour and just didn't want to be in the bus. So, yeah, I got to meet one of them and got to see many pieces of the actual outfits up close. So, unfortunately, that is my entire connection to GWAR. Sing us. Have I ever, okay. Whalezilla, have you ever thought of, oh, I lost it. Wow, this is flying by way too fast. Whalezilla, have you ever thought of doing something from Godzilla franchise like the Oxygen Destroyer? Yes, I have thought about doing a couple of things from the Godzilla franchise. And because of requests for the Oxygen Destroyer, that one is one of the ones I have looked at. To be honest up front, no, I probably wouldn't have thought about it. I do really enjoy the original Godzilla. That's what I grew up on. I'm old enough that I got to go see a lot of the older Toho Godzilla films as they played in the theaters in the States. My mom actually put up with it and would go watch them with me. So I've seen a lot of Godzilla and enjoy it. The Oxygen Destroyer, yeah, that's one I'd like to do. And another big full suit cosplay that I'd really like to do for myself is Mechagodzilla, the 1974 Mechagodzilla. That's the one that I really like. The newer one looks too much like an iMac to me. I don't like it like the old bubble iMac. So it's just doesn't appeal to me, but the wrinkled wetsuit looking 1974 one does. So those are the main things from the Godzilla franchise that I'm interested in. This is a secondary printout of the axe head, so I can cut it out and use it as a template for cutting things out. Something else slightly fun about me. I'm not able to do two things at once very well. It takes a lot of effort to put together a sentence sometimes. So when I'm actually doing something, it gets hard to narrate what I'm doing while I'm doing it. There we go. I don't need to cut that. I need to cut it here because I'm going to use, I know it's only one camera angle. I need to like show other angles, right? Let's see. So cutting out the axe head. I actually cut on the printout. I cut off the cutting edge of the axe head because I plan on putting that back on with a triangular foam dowel. So that's a piece I don't need. It's going to end up coming back. I want it to be about 2 millimeters thick down there. Yeah, but not like that. Really needs to be more like that. Looks like I'll have to add some more. Looks like I need a little bit more wedge down here, right? Yeah, I really should. Okay. Do I have a piece ready to go? Miguel Ramos is asking if I like cookies. Are you asking me or everybody else? Yeah, of course I like cookies. What was this? Richard Stroh says, hey, Odin, I made a, well, I've lost it again. There it is. Saruman staff, and I sent you a picture on Instagram, but have I thought about making Gandalf's little white staff? So I probably saw your staff because I remember seeing a couple on Instagram. I liked it. I've thought about doing Gandalf the whites. It's very, very organic, and so I haven't attempted to tackle that yet, but I've looked at it. So was that noise too bad? Because I know I didn't mute it that time. Just trying to do. There we are. I can see why some other people use Discord and such to get things beforehand. Come on, dry. That was a big one. Metal detecting PA. Come back here, metal detecting PA. Oh, I think he's, please make a stand arrow from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, or try making the Emperor from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. My phone's buzzing. Quiet Rioter says, so Odin, overall, what is your opinion of the Harbor Freight Tools kneeling pad? I'm pretty happy with it. It is a much denser foam than their normal standing pad, but it's still Harbor Freight. Of the 6 that I bought, they varied in thickness from 45 millimeters to 52 millimeters, and they even vary within themselves. They are definitely thicker in the middle than they are in the edges, which is fine because they're a $5 kneeling pad. So, but I love the fact that it's really thick. It's very easy for me to run out and go buy a couple. And right now they're cheap. They're on sale for $5, I think, for the rest of June. And then they're going to go all the way up to $7, I think. Double check that I didn't get an important notice. Okay. All right, here's a big one. Sub says, good afternoon, Odin. Been a long-time fan of the channel. I've always wondered if I'd ever try to make the dual disc from Yu-Gi-Oh! Either the original, the Battle City variant, or the Chaos dual disc. All right. I've seen the requests since DIY Prop Shop, and I know that the dual disc, as well as let's talk about the Ben 10 Omnimatrix, get requested all the time. I'm not sure why I haven't done it. It's just things keep popping up that the Marvel properties keep coming up. Now that I'm doing a weekly show, I may actually have the time to get around to doing it. But when I was doing stuff for DIY Prop Shop, which was like every 6 weeks, and then I started doing stuff for my channel originally, which was every other week, just trying to keep up on some of the stuff that would in my opinion, hit a larger, broader audience. Because I know there is huge fandoms for both of those. I'm not trying to say that, they're not worth watching, because they are. But I was just trying to hit as many numbers as I could, because I was starting out and trying to get viewers. It's a big reason why I bounce around as much as I can between video games and anime and movies and television shows and comic books, because still, there's plenty of people finding me for the first time, and people who find me the first time aren't looking for how Odin makes something, because they don't care. They're looking how to make a thing. And so by making many different types of things, it was my attempt at search engine optimization to get viewers to come to my channel. So why haven't I done it yet? Because I haven't. Xander, didn't quite catch your last name, was asking, any tips for beginning prop makers? I'm going to try and make Riddler's cane. Hello, Xander. Sorry I didn't say your last name. It came and went. Understand your expectations is probably one of the big ones. I've tried to answer this a couple of times here recently. There's the thing of you're building something, and you have in your head what you want it to look like. This goes for me too, right? I've got my image of this is what I want to make. But then there's this translation of it coming out through your hands and coming out through the materials you have to work with, whether they're the ideal materials or not. So knowing what you're going to be able to get out of it is probably a really good thing. Knowing what you're giving yourself the room to finish your project in the best way that you can, and enjoy what you have, because you made it. I like to try and make things look as accurate to what I see on screen as I can, but I'm still way off a lot, especially to my eye. But beginning prop makers, yeah, not quite temper your expectations, but almost. And then as far as tools go, sharp knives are actually far more safe than dull knives. They take a lot less effort to use. So definitely use a sharpener if you're working with foam. And yeah. The other fun thing is what I was bringing up recently. Nobody knows what your vision was in your head but you. They only see the finished project, right? They only see what you've actually completed, or what the work in progress is. And they'll take that as being what it was that you're trying to get. And most people are really excited and happy to see it, even though it may not be quite what you had in mind. So it isn't necessary to always apologize for what you were building. I've done that many times. Oh, it's this, it's that. If they recognize what it is, you successfully made a prop. If you've got it finished and actually take it somewhere where somebody can see it, you've successfully made a prop. Generally speaking, when I was working for Smosh, as long as the director liked it, I successfully made a prop. Didn't matter if the viewers complained about how the props looked on Smosh, because that's interaction for the channel. But so that was kind of the metric I've always had: is it recognized? Is it finished? Is it finished enough? What do you need, Joe?
Looking for Scotch tape.
I've got it on the table right there.
Perfect.
So it's going to be noisy. This time I'll just turn the audio down a lot. All right. So now that it's mostly smooth on both sides of the wedges, so this is the internal part that I want to cut to fit the wood, and then I'm going to put a 6mm skin of HD foam on either side. So that's what the heck's going on. And I'm not so worried about following this outline. I'm just making sure I get a good about there-ish on it. What I end up doing is cutting out the 2 pieces of 6mm. This isn't marking at all. Yeah, it marked a little bit. I can see it. So I'm going to cut out 2 pieces of 6mm. I'll draw the pattern just on one of them, glue it both sides of this, and then cut it out with the bandsaw, which I don't have a camera pointed at. Enrays is asking, how do you remove the textured side of an EVA without anything other than a Dremel? It never comes out smooth for me. Well, if I was trying to do a really large piece of the Dremel, it would never really come out smooth for me either, I don't think. That's 6. Now, are you talking about removing like all the texture off of one of the floor pads, like off the whole piece, or just little strips? Because it gets to be really tricky. The biggest thing for me for trying to keep things kind of smooth with a Dremel is I use it. Dremels rotate, right? All rotary tools rotate. That's what they do. So as the thing is spinning at 10,000 RPM, I don't pull back against the foam, because whenever I do that, foam's so soft, the Dremel will dig in and go down deeper than I want. What I do is I lightly put against it and let it run away from me. And I keep doing that motion over and over and over again. And it takes a little bit of practice before you don't catch the corners and gouge it. But you can get it to get down fairly smooth. But there's still the issue of it's the rotating abrasive surface against the foam, so you end up with kind of a felt, fuzzy type of look. And if that's what you're asking about, that's fun. 2 different things I've done with that here recently. One is I actually used some 1000 grit sandpaper on it, and it smoothed it out really well. That was something I had done to the kneeling pads, but that was on a palm sander. The other thing that have done with the back of the Bane mask is once everything was finished, I just painted on a thin coat of contact cement. And that did a lot. And I actually plan on doing that to part of the axe as a way of helping to eliminate some of the fuzzy. It's not perfect, but I've already got the material and it worked fairly well. And you know, maybe it makes the paint stick better. So we're drawing, came through. I keep seeing Proxabilities keeps praying for Benjamin Carmine's helmet. I'll actually have to look that up. That's a name I don't know. T just says, what if you made a clamshell skin for the axe with a notch cut in the center to make a sharper cutting edge? I think I understand what you're saying. So clamshell isn't hollow. I'm kind of doing that. I'm just going to be using this as the core, which you could use anything. This was just convenient for me. And for the cutting edge, I'm going to be using a triangular foam dowel. So this is a 3-foot long piece of HD foam that's 15 millimeters on each side. And that's a perfect equilateral triangle. So I'm just going to cut the edge here, and then I'll glue that on, and that'll make my cutting edge. And that's how I did the Thundercat sword, and it looks great. So that's kind of my preferred method at this point. Here's the exciting, how's that shot? Oh, I'm actually kind of in shot there. That's nice. See, Steve from HD Foam from SKS Props was the one telling me that pencils work great on this foam, and it does. It's easy to see. And unlike permanent ink, pencil doesn't soak up through the darn spray paint if you're using it. Or other paints, not just spray paint. And I will admit at this point, spray paint is not the ideal paint because it chips. It's easy, but you know, you pay for it. It flakes and chips as it moves because spray paint is not a flexible paint. That's a big reason why I went to the Plat FX paints, because they are a flexible paint. Now, do I want to worry about where this needs to go and make that cut first? So this comes back very little, very little. Okay, so that's that and that's that. Yeah, I'm going to have to just kind of set the bandsaw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go set the table of the bandsaw to an angle and trim this off, because this is, well, let's see. If this is where I want it to attach to the stick, and I've got, I guess this is a stick, right? And that seems to be the same diameter. So the width of the foam at this point in the wedge is about the same as the diameter of the wooden dowel. So I'm going to cut it just behind the wooden dowel because I don't need those parts. What I want to do is cut this round out so it glues around the dowel, and then the 6 mil can go over it. So that's going to be a fun combination of stuff to put together. Wrong keyboard. Before I walk off, I should make a Magneto helmet, says Billy Bob Brown Jr. Yes, I should. Have you seen the one that Uncle Jesse did? That thing's awesome. Can make Shuri's gauntlets, probably. How to keep my props from getting destroyed in LARP battle. Most of these props probably wouldn't be approved for field battle at most of the LARP places I've seen. You actually have to build something specifically for that. A lot of these aren't going to be soft enough that a field marshal would allow it. And then how do you keep them from being destroyed? Well, you don't. That's part of the fun of the LARP battle, isn't it? You're putting these things together, and then you go out and do battle with them. when we were talking to Rao on Beyond Geek, he said a sword would usually last about a summer, and a shield would usually last about a summer or two, maybe three. And some of the other guys that were doing more of the big war door shields. There's a guy in the episode of Beyond Geek, well, the second episode, right? If you go onto Amazon and go and find it, I was there for most of the filming for that. I was a cameraman and editor for that show. There's a fellow who's got a big war shield and it has a face hugger on it, and he was telling me that it's the camping mat foam and the EVA foam on top of a piece of plywood, and he was doing the Plastidip, and that was one of the big clues I had for Plastidip as a sealer on the phone, because that shield was 3 years old and it was still fine. He just had to touch up the paint. And that's, you know, that's what you use to punch other people and to block the blows, right? So it gets plenty of abuse. I'm going to step out for a second and make this cut. There we go. That's what I want. I'll be cutting away from the line I made, so I need to make sure I'm following the line that I want. Oh yeah, that almost works. Liquid Eggshells is saying, actually, you can take some measure to keep your LARP weapons from being destroyed. And I'm sure you can. Please, please elaborate for him. Make a Power Rangers helmet for Nimbus the Dream Pirate. I've been looking at some Power Rangers props, been wanting to do some for a while. I'm going to turn on the bandsaw. Since I'm not using a noise-canceling microphone, all that should come straight through right into your ears. How bad is that? How bad are the power tools? I'm just kind of curious. I usually turn them down a lot when I'm editing. Okay. Yeah, that's it could be a little better. That looks better. I mean, it's got the bent stuff at the end they're going to cut off anyway, but that looks a lot straighter. Okay. Forstner bit hole saw is probably the best, but I might just... It's the wrong cap. Where's the right cap? There it is. So, Aldriki Media, thank you for tuning in. Sorry it got so late for you and you have to run off the bed, but I appreciate you trying to watch. It's afternoon for me. I'm 8 hours behind you guys, but good night to you and your child. Thank you for watching. I'm still here for everyone else. Just good night to one person. Someone was asking me, was pointing out that I was at SAC Academy last year and it was awesome. Yes, it was awesome. And I intend on going to SAC Academy again whenever it opens up. How would I suggest making a realistic wood texture? So the way I did it on the Leviathan axe and the way I would probably do it again on other similar items is you take your X-Acto knife and you got your foam that you're working with. I'll just use this because it's it's lighter, right? You can kind of see it. And what I end up doing is lightly drawing in my wood texture in multiple ways. And try to make a knot if you want it. Then using a heat gun, you can hit that with a heat gun and it'll actually open up. Make sure that doesn't get hit. Now, different foams open up more than others. The HD foam actually takes a little more effort to get it to work because it's a higher density foam. The Harbor Freight tools, that foam opens right up like a charm. A lot of the craft foams also will open right up. So this one's barely giving me anything right now. I probably didn't cut it deep enough, but that will open up and actually give a physical three-dimensional texture. As far as painting a realistic wood texture without actually trying to scratch one in, there are, if you go to the hobby store, go to the craft stores, they actually sell special rubberized brushes just for applying a faux wood finish. It kind of looks like it's kind of a half round and it has a bunch of concentric circles on it. That's what so you get your stain on the edges of the brush, and as you drag it, you roll it, and you get the streaky like stained wood grain. If that isn't going to work because your prop isn't a shape that's going to work on, you literally go in and just do it by hand, or you all the paint strokes you're making keep going in one direction, right? So it ends up becoming the grain of the wood, the grain that you are sloppily putting on the paint. And I would use minimum 3 different colors of brown. Typically I've got a base color that's put on, and then I'll use some brown shoe polish to actually that's the third layer. Then I'll use a different tone of paint that doesn't cover everything. That's got a lot of the streaks in it, maybe even a third color. And then I'll go back with the brown liquid shoe polish and cover over it. And that really kind of marries everything up and makes the colors richer. That's literally what I did to the Leviathan axe, and that was done mostly with spray paint. I've been happy with that as a wood texture. If you're looking for something that's truly an artistic wood texture, you might need to look up faux wood texture painting, because there is a craft to doing that. So I'm sitting over there cutting out this long round channel in the bandsaw, remembering my friend Neil. Neil was the cameraman there for the last half of DIY Prop Shop and a couple of the first episodes of Odin Makes. In fact, I think I've still got a couple of his lenses he's kind of more or less given me. He always joked about wanting to get a really good close-up whenever I'm working with power tools, because he was excited about all the likes he'd get on Live Leak when I cut myself. suppose I shouldn't be upset I disappointed him. IVI, however you want to pronounce this. 151. Greetings from England. I'm working on a Mega Man 10 cosplay. I can't get the armor piece right. I don't know how I should make it so the armor wraps around my torso. What's my advice? So what I've been doing recently to get stuff that actually fits, because I haven't done a whole lot of torso armor for other people. The big one was the torso for the Gundam build, which I was doing with Joe. I ended up using ArmorSmith Designer, which would take a Pepakura file, because ArmorSmith Designer really likes Pepakura files. They're already kind of simplistic enough for it. Within ArmorSmith, you can create an avatar of yourself that has your body measurements, and then you can scale the Pepakura file onto that avatar that has your measurements to where it fits the way you want it to fit, and then it'll unwrap it for you. You still get kind of a Pepakura template, so you kind of have to work on fitting it together in such a way that foam's going to work. But that actually gave me patterns the easiest. Otherwise, there's a video where I wrapped up, myself and Felicia, we wrapped up Thorcules and made a sewing dummy that was just his torso. Honestly, I would go and watch Evil Ted. Evil Ted's got some great tutorials that is the basics of making torso armor, as opposed to making a specific set of torso armor. Like DIY Prop Shop, he made Fallout New Vegas chest armor from Fallout, right? But I think on his channel, he's got some that are more generic. And then Punish Props also has books. I think his are the Foamsmith books, right? Which covers that, how to make chest armor. And I'm sure his book also very much covers how to go about measuring it to fit you. I've got a PDF of the book. I actually haven't read it. And then Kamui Cosplay's got one too. So I would look into all those. And I imagine both Kamui and Punish Props also have videos on that subject, not just Ted. I just know that I've seen Ted's. That's about right. That's all right. That's going to still be attached, right? So when I come down there, maybe. I need to refill my glue pot. Just again, looking at a quick thank you here from Nathan Cole in the UK, and you're welcome. I appreciate that you've enjoyed the videos and that you've enjoyed the entertainment. So thank you very much for watching, and I'm glad that you're entertained. One of these days, I'll get to England and actually get to see the place. I actually haven't traveled that much. I've been all over the United States. I've been into Canada briefly once, and I got to go to Crete for a while. I was on a World War II documentary shoot, and that's it. That's the extent of my international travel. You know, unless you want to count Texas. Thank you, Stephen Morris. That's very generous of you. went out of view before I could read the whole thing, but made Loki's head guard. Wondering if I could make, I think he said Loki's staff. Yeah, I'd like to. That was on my short list of Marvel props to do. I kind of would like to go back to getting more of the Infinity Stone props made. You know, I've only got the Tesseract so far, but I've got a Gundam to build. I've got an axe to build. I've got some Magic the Gathering stuff to do. You know, it'll happen. I've got another couple of clone trooper helmets that I promised my Patreons I'd build. So I got 2 more of those to do. Quiet Rider. Texas is the best international country. Yes, it is. I was greatly amused and not surprised that the United States is split up into 3 main power grids, and I think the Rockies or close to it is the division. So you've got the West Coast, the west side, right? And that's one main power grid that's separate from the east side. That's a separate main power grid, and the other power grid is Texas. Texas is their own power grid. They are not connected to the rest of the country. The only other spot that's a little bit different is there's bits of Maine that actually get their power from Canada. But it makes sense. You know, Dallas Fort Worth Airport, that's a city. It has its own rapid transit within the airport. You know, okay. Area Mono 54 says, how about something from Kamen Rider? Kamen Rider. That'd be cool. I've got some friends that were working on that. We talked about how to do the eyes, which that's kind of tricky. How to make those eyes, right? Because they're basically motorcycle reflectors are the eyes of the original Kamen Rider green mask. But yeah, how to do that? I was wondering if we couldn't vacuum form the. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to do that. If we couldn't vacuum form the prism inserts that go on top of drop ceiling lights, because that kind of has that pyramid prism texture in the back. And they were trying that, but because the plastic has different thicknesses to it, it failed miserably. It didn't. Before everything could really kind of heat and form, apparently it fell apart, kind of like perforated, just because the variance of the thickness of the plastic. You know, it made sense when they talked about it, and I was kind of bummed. Because, you know, I wanted it to work. So that's going to be a lot thicker down here. That's all right. That's less than ideal. Well, it'll be there. So what I'm looking at here is I want to put that triangular piece on, right? So I'm going to glue this piece on the other side, and this is a great thickness for the triangle piece, but it gets to be a little too wide at this point. Everything else is pretty much okay. So I'm going to try and shave a little bit off here so this doesn't cause a problem. Hopefully that makes sense. It does in my head. Yeah, that'll work. Smooth that out a little bit. And that's actually how I cut the edge on the on the fusion sword. It was by hand, very slowly, and then went back and sanded it. Now it's time to apply some more glue. So I suppose it's been about an hour, so I should do something along the lines of, hello, hi, I'm Odin. If you're just now joining the stream or have a little while ago wondering what's going on and didn't read the title, this is a work in progress live stream of me working on next week's video. So this will probably be coming out on the Wednesday. It's going to be the Assassin's Creed Valhalla axe. It's the one that Avon, I can't pronounce his name. He has it in his left hand. That's the left hand axe, specifically on the cover, I think on the cover. But at least in a lot of the, especially in the cinematic trailers, the one he's got in his hand there. There seems to be about 4 different axes that I saw in the different promotional artworks. But this one was the one that I liked. In the on the axe head on the side, in some of the scroll work, is a wolf's head. So that's kind of fun. The one that actually has the Assassin's Creed logo is a bit simpler, very similar profile of axe, but it's a bit simpler of an axe, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of the knot work on it. It just has a lot of leather ties all over it. So I thought, oh, I'll do the one that's got the logo on it first. And I looked at it and went, that's not as exciting. Okay, Maxim Radiosologic. I'm massacred that. Odin, every time I try to make props, I always fail, and I've tried for quite a long time. Do I have any tips for how to deal with failure? Any tips for how to deal with runaway comment section? Do I have any tips to stop this chain of failure? It is a chain of failure, but it's a chain of learning, right? This is annoying crap that I didn't want to hear. Oh, I painted the wrong side. I got to paint this side. You're learning. So every time you've done something that you're not happy with, try and figure out maybe what got it to the point that you're not happy with, so you can either sometimes undo it. Usually, the next time you do something, you're doing it differently. It's easy. I'm really good at being stuck in a rut because I'm trying to put stuff out on a very regular basis. So I keep doing a lot of the same techniques. But you probably don't have that kind of self-restriction. So I would look at what went wrong as best as you can figure, and change how you did it. Either change the paint you're using, wait a different amount of time for the contact cement to dry, use a second layer of contact cement. Depending on where you are, use a different brand of contact cement. I'm still pretty happy with the Red Label DAP Weldwood. And I've only used like 4 different brands of contact cement. And I say Red Label because the green label is water-based. And that is a nightmare to use on foam. It works on wood, but it's a nightmare on foam. The red stuff works great. Barge is beautiful. And I've used another name I can't remember that just kind of came in a tube because I was in a pinch, and that worked fine. Basically, it's like a rubber cement. But that may not be what your failure point is. A lot of it might be what you're not getting out what you're expecting in your head. And I still deal with that too. There's a certain level of personal expectation of what you're going to get. And you might want to try to keep that in mind, that maybe what you're building is not going to be exactly the way it is, the way you picture it, because there is a muscle skill set that you haven't fully developed yet. I'm still there. I'm still working on it. I just accept what I got and pretend like, hey, I'm an authority because I'm on the internet. I'm going to reapply glue to the other side because I failed to trace out a left and a right side. I traced out a right and a right side. Sorry for the glitching. My camera, my computer doesn't seem to like the super long cable I've got attached to the camera setup. Long time, Ainsley Swartz, longtime fan from South Africa. Hello. It's 1:30 in the morning, but hey, who keeps track of time during lockdown? Absolutely. I understand you there. Who keeps track? And it's so often that I'm up at those hours at my time trying to get something done. So, but hey, thanks for tuning in. Sorry, it's 4:30 for me in the afternoon. I'm going to try and do this more earlier in the day because I know that as far as time goes around the world, I'm at the far end of it. So the rest of the planet's already asleep or on to the next day by the time it's afternoon for me. But yeah, I'll try doing this earlier in the day. Swag Call 999 says he's new to the channel. Hello, thanks for tuning in, and wants to know if I would do the gun blades of Squall from Final Fantasy VIII. I've looked at the gun blades; those are cool. I like the gun blades, and I like the engine blades, and I would like to. It's just working them in, seeing. It's amazing how much I try to plan ahead of what I'm doing. And then it ends up doing the 3-shell shuffle game because something's coming out that I missed or wasn't aware of. So I have a list of like 200 things that I was thinking about doing, and both of those are on there. As is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual Disc and the Ben 10 Omnimatrix and the Voyagers Omnitrix and the Voyagers has the Omnimatrix, right? Or is the Omnimatrix Transformers? Anyway, yeah, maybe eventually. I hope so if I get to it. I'm only making 50 or so videos a year, so we'll see what comes out. Waiting for glue to dry. Phineas Smith says, I'm looking to sell some of my random weapons online. Would you mind pricing some of your simple weapons to give me an idea what they could go for? Wow. Okay, so one of the fun things with cosplay props is the materials for building is usually very accessible, right? The cost of the foam is from Blick Arts is $15 a roll. That's 2 feet by 5 feet. There's a lot of foam there. It's $4 for a package of floor mat foam from Harbor Freight Tools, and that doesn't have any shipping. The cost comes from your time. How much is your time worth? If you want to make I'm almost mixing this with commission, but you've already done it, and now you're looking to sell it to move on to something else. So if you've already done it and you want to move on with it, then you need to look at it as kind of secondhand. Was it part of an award-winning cosplay? Because that could increase its value, right? Or at least you could spin it that way. Was it something that was particularly difficult for you to do and you feel it would be difficult for someone else to replicate? That would have a little more value. Is it something that by selling it, you're just saving someone some time so they don't have to get it done because they're on a serious con crunch? That may not have as much value. So how much can you get out of it? Honestly, when I'm pricing things out for commissions, and for the most part, I don't take commissions because I don't have time for it. They end up being far more than I think I would want to pay for them. But this is, on my personal budget, right? So I'm not answering your question directly because I can't see what the props are, and I don't think there's a hardcore answer. But what do they pay? It's like the worst axiom ever. But I hear plenty of video guys say that when they're pricing out their videos for doing production. So all of a sudden I got that going through my head. Yeah, it's probably not going to be a whole lot. What truly ends up happening is we're making the props for the love of doing it, right? At least that's hopefully the thought. Then that you're not going to be getting minimum wage back for the hours you put into it, and that's the big one. That materials are fairly cheap. It's the time you put into it, and if you put in a solid 2 weeks working on it, no one's going to be able to afford 2 weeks worth of even minimum wage to pay you back for the time you put into it. You end up making less per hour by your labor for doing it. But when you're doing the labor on that, hopefully you're in a place where you're comfortable. You get to watch what you want to watch, and you don't have a boss over your shoulder. So that's got value too, right? So what's it worth? Probably something affordable. Yeah, that's really rough. Giberlin Santos says, hello to me from Brazil. Hello, Brazil. Stewie Miorga. Boy, I just can't pronounce names at all. Well, greetings from LA. At least we're in the same time zone. Hello, if this is Los Angeles, LA. You had a period in there, so I assume it's not Louisiana. Richard Soth is asking if I can make Kylo Ren's lightsaber to make it light up. Yeah, I probably could. So, weird little side thing for why I haven't made a whole lot of lightsabers on my channel, which I think actually on my channel it's right now sitting at 0. Early on was working with Beyond Geek, which is a PBS show, and I'm good friends with the creator for that show, and he's right here in the same town I am. I was still doing DIY prop shop, and he had a concern that if I was to do a lightsaber build, it would actually kind of compete with the show that he was paying for out of his pocket. All this may not sound like a big deal to anyone else, but he did a lot to get me going on my show. The first couple of years, I was using his equipment. I'm actually still using his microphone right now. So out of respect for him, I haven't made lightsabers on my channel. So would I make a Kylo Ren lightsaber? I probably could. But right now, I still feel like I have a gentleman's agreement with this man that I'm not going to be making lightsabers on my show because I made one on his channel. And the difference between making a Jedi lightsaber that lights up and a Kylo Ren lightsaber that lights up is effectively a T adapter for PVC pipe. Effectively, right? When I'm looking at objects, when I'm looking at props, I look at basic shapes. I've got an axe, which means I've got a triangular head and I've got a handle. And that's basically an axe. Everything else that goes on top of this is the decorations. It's all the different bits and pieces that make it the specific axe. And that's the details. So what makes Kylo Ren's lightsaber? Well, the fact that it has a lightsaber crossguard on it and that it's a little more chaotic, the blade isn't as refined. Otherwise, it's the same shape as all the other lightsabers, which is going to be a tube. So could I? Yes. Do I plan to? Not anytime soon. Pardon me. Now it's starting to look like those clip-on Lego axes. That's kind of cool. Liquid eggshells. So there's this company called the Duncan Dwarf that uses balloons for the boffers with a fiberglass resin core covered in Kevlar, making it virtually indestructible and very lightweight. That's interesting. One of the things Zot talked about at one point, as well as another friend that I have that was, see, Stagger here. What was Oh, I can't remember the other company, but anyway, varying thicknesses of foam. That the what I was doing and what Zot was doing with using the plumbing insulation core. That is the centermost piece that you actually put a softer foam on top of that, and maybe even batting on top of that, depending on the rules you're working with. So you end up with, it's kind of bulky, but it has a lot of give, and you're very much hitting with a pillow as opposed to the boffers that we had made, which have a little more sting to them. But you're not supposed to be bare shirt fighting with boffers anyway, so. DDR USA says, first time watching your live stream. Well, this is almost one of my first live streams. I've live streamed a couple of times, but this is the first time I've done a work in progress live stream. I hope and want to do more of these. Yeah, that'll be fine. So I'm going to glue that in place. Got a bunch of dust on here because I got glue on the wrong side. I got to bend that. That'll be all right. Still seeing the screen glitch out a little bit. Okay. Well, that wasn't a live stream. I don't know what you kicked down. Was it just the extension cord?
Yep. Good. I'm glad I didn't screw up your live stream.
Yeah, well, wouldn't be the first time today. Joe tripped over a cord in the shop because, I'm organized. It was just the extension cord for the heat gun because I had to separate power. I was popping circuits. Typical things. But now he's in danger of tripping over the live stream cord.
Right.
There you go.
Just going to go grab a pen.
Come get a pen. Remember, you're not mic'd. Hey guys, look, it's Joe. He got off the table.
Yeah, I'll take scissors too. That's all good.
He's working on a face mask for a friend.
Actually, it's a commission.
Oh, it's a commission?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. So from off camera, Joe's yelling, "Oh, no, it's a commission." So he's working on a face mask. That's a commission. So yeah, awesome. So Joe takes commissions. I don't. Do you? If you really want to try to talk to Joe about doing a commission, it's joe@odinmakes.com. There's the email. Spam away. He's the best one to ask for commissions that'll actually come out of my shop. Otherwise, any commission work I would send to Superheroes Unlimited. They're actually a group of artists that specialize in different parts of the project, and so it moves around between the artists to get it done, which actually gets things done faster and cheaper for them because everyone's kind of doing their specialized work. Daniel Kinney, Deku mask. I'm so happy. That was a build from a couple of weeks ago. It actually has a couple of layers of t-shirt on the inside, so I could wear that out for my social distancing mask, and it works as a dust mask. It's not an ideal dust mask. It's got some holes, but it's better than nothing. Wyatt Yastru Purdom. Boy, I'm butchering that, and I'm really sorry. Hello from Northern Idaho. Hello, Northern Idaho. I have family there. Well, Idaho anyway. Would I ever make the Doomguy's sword from Doom Eternal or Iron Man Tony Stark's arc reactor? And then he asked, what are my commissions? I think he said, well, commissions, again, I'm going to steer at joe@odinmakes.com. The Doomguy sword would be awesome. You're talking about the actual, the big T-blade. I can't remember. It's got a name. It's not the Eternal sword. I'd have to look it up. That would be really cool. Yeah, and I already forgot what the other one was. Would I ever do them? They both look great to me. I remember reading them and thinking, yeah, that sounds cool. They're not on my list right now. They're not on my short list, but yeah. So what do I want to do next? I don't quite want to start putting some of the details that go on the side of the blade, which you can't really see in the printout. I'm going to use a hot knife for. I think I want to cut out the wolf's head and all the fancy stuff. Oh, that's going to be a pain. With at a 2mm and lay that on. It's not very big, which is nice. And then it's got kind of an inset panel that's a darker color from the rest of the blade, and that I'm just going to use the wood burner for. I can almost just go ahead and stick this on. That might be jumping the gun a little bit, but I don't think so. Make sure it's not too droopy. I don't want a sad axe. Oh, I gotta put those on. I need to put these on so the backside doesn't wrap around too far, that they stay kind of straightish. Okay, so I gotta do that. Those are great. So I'm working on a prop. I'll have an idea on how to do a couple of the major parts. Like I thought about, how do I want to do the blade? How do I want to make the blade attached to the handle? Stuff like that. I pre-planned that far ahead. And then a lot of the stuff that goes on around the handle of the axe, the side of the axe head, that's all just a couple of layers of thinner foam wrapped around. It's all paint job in order to make that look like the metal accents that it's supposed to be on the metal handle. I'm actually going to wrap leather around the base because I've got leather, and it's easiest way to make something look like it's wrapped with leather is to wrap it with leather. But there's a lot of nuanced details that I don't figure out until I'm there. And kind of where I'm at now is how do I bridge the gap between having an axe head that's mostly finished as far as a generic shape and the details that go on the handle? How to connect the dots between the two of them? And that's actually kind of what I'm looking at right now. But I think I'm going to go ahead and glue it together and pretend like I don't regret it. If I end up regretting it, which I doubt I will. Something else, I hardly ever make something more than once. What you see on the show is the first time I built it, and it's the first one that I built. There's the occasion that I have made a second piece or had to redo a piece, and that's usually in the video. There's been a couple of times, more on DIY Prop Shop, because I had a much tighter schedule for shooting, where I would build something ahead of time. Like Zig's Bomb, when I did that for DIY Prop Shop, there was a huge piece that I covered the whole thing with spackle, and that had to dry, right? So I built the entire bomb and put spackle on it the night before and set it aside so it could dry. And then the day of shooting, I sat down and started building a secondary bomb and glued all the pieces on it, all the same steps, and had cut out everything twice, and then started putting spackle on it to show that, okay, this is what I did next. And then I set the wet one aside and picked up the dry one and continued on with the project with all the painting, all the finish work, because it takes 12, 13 hours for it to dry. We don't have time for that. And then with the Rick and Morty portal gun, because there were parts that I was cutting on the bandsaw that were going to take time to dry. Same thing. There was one that I made on set, on screen, that was up to the point of now it needs to set up and I can go and cut it. So set that aside. And I had made 2 the night before, the day before, that were ready to be cut on the bandsaw. So I could go and cut it. And if something went wrong, table saw, sorry. And if something went wrong, as I did the most dangerous table saw cut I ever could, I had a secondary one that I could cut instead. First one ended up cutting out just fine, so I've got 2 spare handles, but didn't want to count on that happening. Trumpet Player says, hey, I'm a big fan. I was wondering if I could ever make a wearable fin and arrow like Yondo's in Guardians of the Galaxy. Yes, I saw one of those at Dragon Con this last year. The only time I've been to Dragon Con once in 2019. Those were awesome. That guy, the one he made, was awesome. Yondo's fin, sure. That doesn't sound like a bad idea. The arrow is interesting because it's so wispy and thin. It almost seems like it would be a wooden dowel or something far more technical like graphite rod with 3D printed ends on it, because what am I going to do? I suppose I could really carve it with a Dremel. But the fin would be very cool. I probably should make a list of just Marvel props. I've got some that are built into that big list, and start picking out some Marvel props to do over the summer as we wait for the movies to come back. I'm going to try and stick this together. I want to squint at the screen one more time. Fitted Grace pause. Odin, please, don't pull out that little bottle of glue with the needle. I have, okay. Well, I'm not intending, I have a word I can't pronounce. I'm not intending on bringing out that glue applicator right now. That actually still has thinned out black paint in it from doing panel lining on the Gundam model. I need to go buy a new one from Tap Plastic so I can put glue in it again. But yeah, no, I'm not planning on bringing that out this time. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's cut perfectly square. No, it's not. Not even close. Make a happy axe. Don't make a sad axe. Don't have the head droop. There we go. These are just the square filler, which I didn't apply glue to, so I will need to do that. That way the sides of the 6 mil can lay up against these little rounded triangles of kneeling pad, and it doesn't just wrap around the wood. That should be fine. Jason Newman's just screaming, no. Are you, I'm not going to actually act it out. Are you like quoting Anakin from episode 1? Is that what's going on? Could I make the hidden blade as well? Possibly. Got a great question asking about the knurled knob on the Han Solo blaster. I missed your name. I'm sorry about that. Wow, I can't reach it right now. Which was the knurled knob? I would have to look at it, which it's about 9 feet up in the dark over there in order to see which knurled knob it was and be able to tell which one it was. I pulled it off something. I don't know what it is. The knurled knob. Some of those are water bottle caps or like medicine bottle caps and things. A lot of caps have really nice little knurls on them. If it was one that I went and bought, I know Ace Hardware, at least here in my area in Sacramento, California, has plenty of little drawers with bits of hardware in it, and they actually have sections of knurled knobs. And I went in and bought a bunch once. They're not cheap, but they're exactly what they need to be. If it was something metal, it was a found object that came off of something that broke, which is not fair, but that's what it was. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to start wrapping some of this stuff. I've got the piece that needs to go in here. I'll cut that top piece because there's a disc that goes on top. I'll cut that after I get the sides put on so it's the right size. There's a little ball that goes in the back. I have one last piece of cat toy. I think I'm going to use for that. It's actually a little big, but it's most of a sphere. So this is what I'm going to use. It goes in the back. But it's got more bands of metal that go here. And there's a band of metal that goes here that has a little bit of knot work on it. And then there's a big band. All right. I can talk about it, but here, let's see. So where am I at? Am I even on screen? That's a horrible shot. There we are. So I've got my printout that I'm working from. I've got the thing that I'm working towards. And I'm still working on the basic shape. So right here is this. This is a metal band. I know from looking at the image. Black and white printer, so it's exciting to look at. There's multi-steps of band that goes here. So this is wood. This is actually wood. So these little parts are going to stay this way. There's a band that goes here. Okay, it's just got a little bit of a half round on it. Yeah, I can do it like that. There's a band that goes here that goes up and down. That might be the fun one to cut first. And then that's 10 mil with a 45 cut. And I got this band. There's a big section that's got knotwork. And then there's a metal band that goes down here. It is just, yeah, that's right. It's just a hand. So these are some metal bands. This is all leather all the way down to the bottom. And then down here, I need to actually sand that from some miracle piece I don't have right now. How many of you work with miracle pieces you don't have right now? Tyler Denham says, oh, another question, Odin. I was the one who asked about the knurled knob. Oh, okay. Well, hello, Tyler. Come back. There we are. What is my favorite video game of all time? And if you could make a prop from it, what would said prop be? So what is my favorite video game of all time? Well, I know which one I've spent more time playing, but Civilization 5 really doesn't count, right? So what is my favorite video game of all time? My absolute quotable, hands down, never going to argue it's not my favorite, Portal 2. Absolutely. Cave Johnson, GLaDOS, a couple of my favorite characters. What would said prop be? How about the portal gun? It's dusty as heck, but it's sitting up there because I made it a few years ago. Yeah. and recently I saw a reaction GIF on Reddit with someone who was acting like they're following along doing the portal gun. And then all of a sudden I go out and I grab the windshield wipers off my truck and they're just, huh? And it was, that would pretty much be it. Yeah. J.K. Simmons, Cave Johnson. I have to wonder how much of that was scripted and how much was just him going off. Just like, yeah, improvise, go for it. Just like another question I might get, and if not, I'll answer it beforehand anyway, is what would be my favorite movie of all time? Now, I have answered this before on other live streams or podcasts and things, and I'm going to continue to say the same thing. My favorite movie of all time, the movie I've seen probably more than any other movie that I've chose to sit down and watch more than any other movie, not counting Rocky Horror, because you go to that every weekend, right? You're not really watching it. At least you used to when we didn't have the internet. Tremors. The first Tremors movies, got to be my favorite movie of all time. Val and Earl and everyone in perfection. I like the characters. I like the jaws on the ground. I've actually gone out to the Lone Pine Park where they shot parts of the movie just to walk around the rocks. It's a stupid movie, but it's not. It's a fantastic movie. I really enjoy that movie. There was a point in time when I was working on a large UFO project for a local comic shop here in Sacramento. It was called Comics and Comics. When the downtown mall was doing its major renovation from being the dump that it was to the fancy dump that it became, they were going to make a big fiberglass UFO. That was going to be the sign for the store, a big 3-dimensional thing they wanted, right? Because they weren't allowed to have big signs that stuck out into the mall, but they were allowed to have sculptures. So if the sculpture was the sign, that got around the laws of the rules of the mall, and that was all okay. So I made this 8-foot diameter flying saucer. It was made in pie pieces, so I just made 1/8 of the saucer, and then had a professional fiberglasser pull 8. Made a mold first off the plug that I made, and then he made 8 identical parts off of that, and then we screwed it all together, and it actually worked. We did the math right? Because if you have a mistake, you're going to imitate it 8 times around, and you'll end up with a gap. It didn't have it; it worked. But doing that project, doing the couple of weeks of sanding and smoothing and getting the initial plug right, because it had to be perfect, because this was the only one that was going to get made. Then it was going to get molded. I actually copied off Tremors onto audio cassette that I listened to on my Walkman. And there was a point in the movie when they're on the roof in perfection, because the graboids are starting to tear the town down. When Val and Earl are going over the side of the walls from the roof to pick up the CV off the shelf inside of Chang's shop. And that is when the cassette would click over. And anymore, when I'm watching the movie, I'm waiting for the couple of seconds of silence and click for the cassette to flip over, right? Because the whole movie fit on a 90-minute cassette minus the end credits. Anyway, Tremors, favorite movie of all time. Puneet Sandhu has got some of the best mispronunciation things I could ever hope to say. Basically, he's saying something along the lines of something like that. Another one is asking me if I was to ever remake a prop and do something different, what would it be? The Bumblebee head, I would love to try and make the face over again, because I made the face with too much of a human proportion. Bumblebee's face has got more of a Stewie Griffin proportioned face, where it's very flat and very wide, but I didn't build mine that way. And so I'm not really happy with how that face turned out. And I wouldn't mind actually making another portal gun that lit up with both colors. But at the same time, I've made both of those, and I'm looking at doing something new. So those are a couple things I wouldn't mind doing again. Bumblebee is definitely not high on my list. Portal gun, maybe, but there's other new stuff I can do. Get some water. Where are we at? We're at, just over 100 minutes. I suppose it tells me here. Yeah, 100 minutes. Yeah, there's clocks all over the place, you blind man. Fit of Grace Paz is asking, what's my favorite prop I've made? I don't know if you mentioned this before, but what's the favorite prop I've made? That one's a tough question. Generally speaking, at this point, I've made so many. The last one that I finished is kind of one of my favorites, because it's my favorite at the moment, because it's the newest. Long term, what ends up being some of my favorites, I still really like the Fusion Sword, which was a DIY prop shop prop. I really like the right-handed Doom that I made from Hellboy, and that was one that I actually got into Doug Jones' hand. So that was one of the few props I've made where I've met the actor from the movie, even though it wasn't the same character. He was still there. He's good friends with Ron Perlman. And he signed it. So that was one that I really liked. So let me turn around and look so I can remember. Out of the more recent stuff I've done that I'm really, really happy with, it's the gravity gun from Half-Life 2. I'm very happy with how that one turned out. And I kind of like the heavy Mandalorian mask, even though it's kind of a tricky pattern. I like that one because that really ended up looking a lot like what I wanted it to look like. I just don't think I did a very good job of explaining how it goes together in my instructions, which isn't fair to all of you out there. There's some 6. There's some 4. There's some 10. Yeah, that's about what I need, isn't it? Oh, look. Okay. So if I just take, actually, that's not even that thick. That's 2. Okay, I need 2. I could use 3. I got some leftover craft foam that's 3. So I'm throwing out numbers. That's the thickness. This is 3 millimeters thick. This is craft foam from, I don't know which craft store now. I've got some 2 millimeter thick HD foam. I've got some 4 millimeter thick HD foam that apparently is hard to come by. The Blick Arts doesn't carry it. Some 6 millimeter HD foam and some 10 millimeter HD foam. No, HD isn't the only foam. TNT Cosplay's got foam. They carry 4 easily. I think they carry 12 as well. I just haven't ordered from them recently. Wow. Morokotopo? Morokotopo? Wow, I can't. Anyway, thank you for loving the Gundam project. I'm enjoying it very much so far. I'm sure when it's done, that's going to be one of my favorite projects. But it's actually multiple projects put into one, so it's kind of hard for me to think of it as one thing. Ultimately, it is. But there's going to be 8 videos or so before that thing's done. And we're on 5 right now. So, it's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to the end of June when we actually get the legs finished and can actually fully see it. Trying to talk about how to shoot it, how to get cosplay pictures of it, right? How to set up something to where he looks like he's in his right environment. Whether that's trying to shoot it in a set, because I don't want to do a green screen, right? Trying to shoot it in a set that's kind of blacked out, so we can kind of sort of try to make it look like space, or go to a parking garage downtown and then have the camera angle set up in such a way that it looks like he's standing in the city, right? Something like that. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're playing with the idea. Okay, so I made a mark here. It's about 1 inch. I suppose I can measure it off my plans. It's a little more than 1 inch on the plans. Try as hard as I can to do things in metric, because metric absolutely is a superior measuring system to standard. I grew up with standard. I can look at things and get a good eyeball distance of, oh, that's about that, because that's what I've been used to using my entire life. None of which is anything negative about the metric system. It's actually based on something real, water, and it's in multiple ways, not just in arbitrary fractional ways. It is absolutely a better measuring system. So I'm going to wrap the 3 mil around the head, right? And then where the ends meet, it's kind of hard to see because my fingers are in the way, I'm coming around and then pressing on it. And even though this is craft foam, it doesn't hold as well. That'll give me the slightest of impressions. I don't even know if the camera can see it because it's a difference in texture for me, but that's where I'm going to want to cut it. So without actually having to physically measure it, I can just wrap it around, mash it. I'm going to cut it just a little bit, like 1 millimeter, larger than where the line is, because things never seem to go exactly back the same way. Got about 15 minutes left because I wanted to run about 2 hours, and we're getting close to that. And I can feel it in my voice that I've been talking for 2 hours straight. Local and Bub. Hey Odin, is there anywhere I can send you pictures of my props? I've been watching your videos for years, but I've only just started to make props, and he wants to share some, and they want to share some pictures with me. Absolutely. My Instagram is Odin Makes. I get at Odin Makes. I get lots of people that send me pictures through Instagram. I actually have a YouTube group page. Group? It is a group page, right? It's called Odin's Makers, or Facebook. Sorry, Facebook. Thank you, Joe. I've been talking for 2 hours. So I got a Facebook group page called Odin's Makers, and that's a great place to share them. I go in there and look at stuff on occasion. I'm not there every day, but I go in there and look at stuff on occasion. So a place that I check more often recently, there's a Reddit thread, R Odin Makes. I've seen some stuff posted in there. Otherwise, I have people that still just email me pictures at odin@odinmakes.com. And that was what I was putting in my original videos until I started getting comments like, is that an email? Then I kind of realized, yeah, only us old people use email, huh? So I stopped putting that in the comments. But all those are just fine. That'd be great. I love to see pictures. There is a slightly long-term goal, something we're trying to get done, probably end of the year-ish, somewhere in that area, of actually making odinmakes.com be a website. And I would really like to have users, viewers, pictures of projects that they made that are tied to the page that goes with the talk about the video that I've done. So it seems like a lot of content to put together, but that would be really kind of cool, I think, to try and get that to work. So I got glue on both sides. I'm going to try and hide the seam behind the axe head as much as I can. Oh, hey, I think I'll go ahead and do that while we're on the live stream. You see, I stretched it. So, let's go back to the other camera angle. So even though I cut it, and I tried to cut it to where it was a tiny bit longer, I was pulling on it a little bit in a thought of keeping it straight. So now it's a little bit longer than it should be. In post, I can the cameras are shooting 4K, so I can actually push in a little more and you can see it better. But what I want to do is look at where the seam is as straight as I can. That end, it's not that straight. I'm going to cut it and tear out the part I don't want. And that is about as good as I ever get it, which another way of putting it is, and that's just fine. So that's the wrap there. So then that's too big. I should go with the 6 mil. So I want a little strip of 6. If I do the 2, it'll be great. Okay. I didn't measure that. Oh, it's going to be a different thickness anyway. So this wants to come around. Mashing it again like last time to try and kind of get an idea about where the overlap's going to be. The overlap's going to be kind of around there. After this, I'll put the triangular dowel on the front since I talked about that. Okay, so that wraps around. Then I want this to not be the whole length. I want it to be use metric. I want it to be just outside my vision. Yeah, about 20 millimeters, about 20. Okay. Well, where's that other ruler? That other ruler's great.
not looking for the cork coloring.
No, I'm looking. I've got this little one that is actually 2 centimeters wide. So I'm going to use that one. And what I want to do, so I've got this little fuzz here I don't like. There's a double cut, so I've got a wonky bit there. This edge is still clean. What I want to do is lay this down, because this is one piece. This ends up being a decorative ring around the head of the axe. So I don't want to cut this straight up in. I mean, I can, but that's not the decoration I want. So what I want to do is cut it on an angle to where the base is still 20 millimeters, because this is a 2 centimeters wide. Almost didn't quite get through it. There we go. And that's actually not that angle. That could be a better angle. Well, that's a bummer. That was anticlimactic. All right, let's try that again. Try and do an even greater. Really putting pressure with my left hand to try and hold it in place, because I'm cutting up underneath the ruler. I don't want it to lift up and move. There we go. Now that's a better angle. So I'm going to take that and wrap that around it. Okay. Probably, before I do this, so before I glue this on, I'm going to hook up the wood burner. So I can cut in. It's got a bit of a line, so at the top of the edge, it then has a recessed line. And honestly, the side edge of the wood burner dragging along it is just going to be the easiest way to do it. So if I do it while it's flat on the table, as flat as my table is because I don't take care of it, that's going to be a lot easier than trying to work it around the round axe head. So that needs to set up. Let's glue the front on. Connor Cook, I really enjoyed watching your live build, Odin. I have to go, and you may be done before I get back. So, well, thank you for dropping by, Connor. I appreciate you watching. Yeah, I've got about another 5-10 minutes or so, and then I'm going to glue the front on, and then I'll be signing off. Freaky Prime Games. Hello from Mexico, Odin. Ooh, it's getting away from you again. You have a prop you've always wanted to make, but something happens and postpone it for some other reason. Sure. One of the ones I remember talking to my dad about wanting to build a long time ago that just never happened was the Akira motorcycle, and that was going to keep getting away from me. That's a little big for my program right now. That would be very much a multi-program thing, but that would be fun. I also really like the laser cannon from Akira, the one that Kaneda actually has. He's got a big battery pack over one arm, and then the laser gun that's attached to the wire. That one I also really, really like. It's not very exciting to look at, but as far as science fiction goes, I enjoy the fact that it has a very reasonable and large power source for this portable laser that's a bazooka. And the design otherwise had a lot of real world thought kind of put into it. I don't think it's like super hardcore, but enough that it was easy for me to believe it, and I really liked it for that reason. I'm stepping away to get the triangular dowel, which is way over the other side of the shop. Ah! Crash. I knocked Thorkeely's body double over. I'll have to look at that later. Hope I didn't put a big dent in it. So this is the 15 millimeter wide triangular dowel. There really isn't a better word for it than triangular dowel. It's just a 3 foot long length of high density EVA foam that is cut to be a triangle. And this is what I'm going to glue to the front to make my axe edge. Because it's so much easier than trying to do this with a Dremel. Seb TH1 is asking, hey, Odin Makes, do you take commissions? I'd love to see Solx Mondo from Xenoblade Chronicles. I know Xenoblade. Xenoblade. I know the Chronicles. I don't know the specific characters, and to be very specific, I don't take commissions personally because I don't have time. It takes a full week, basically a full work week, for me to get a project built, written, and edited in order to put it out the following Wednesday. And I'm trying to get ahead again. There was a period of time very briefly there in January, I think, when I was working 2 weeks ahead and I could actually go home on the weekends, trying to get around to doing that again. So I don't take commissions, but I know a guy who does. Joe at odinmakes.com takes commissions, as does Superheroes Unlimited. So Superheroes Unlimited, you can find through Facebook. I've talked to Derek, the guy that runs that. He runs a great shop. He does a good job. He also does a lot of agent handling for YouTubers and cosplayers to appear at different cons. It's because of him that I was supposed to have been at RocketCon when the world was working the way it was working back in January. RocketCon would have come and gone already, I think. But it's going to come up in August, so I should still be at RocketCon then. Those are the two people that I definitely suggest. Joe at odinmakes.com would end up making it here in this shop, and I would be giving him some guidance, but it's not I'm not doing the work because, like right now, he's working on a commission for somebody else, and I'm doing this. And then when I'm done with this, he'll take over the table and continue to do something while I give my voice a break. I think I answered that. So a quick question to the viewers. I asked this before when it was just my patrons. Can you guys hear the train? I've got train tracks about 300 yards, 200 yards behind me. The main train tracks. They go right through Sacramento up to the Roseville switch yards, the main switch yards for Northern California. I'm not far from the old SP, Southern Pacific Railroad garage, where all the locomotives for Southern Pacific were taken care of. That place is not being used anymore now that Union Pacific's taken over it. But I'm only a few miles from those. And I'm aware of all that because my dad actually learned to be a mechanical engineer. He was an apprentice at the SP rail yards. So I'm always kind of curious, how well can you guys hear the train? Don't mind the hand. That's not Joe. This is my thing prop from Addams Family. As opposed to my thing prop from The Thing, which would be kind of cooler. Or you can start making all sorts of horrible off-color jokes about my thing prop. But this is a family show. Or at least it was. Hey, you know what? Hot things are hot. So Zot had something he repeated all the time to me because he had a shop teacher, metal shop teacher. And his favorite thing to say was, remember, sharp things cut, hot things burn. I burnt myself. I was reaching over and I touched the hot thing that burns. Okay, I'm going to be unsafe. I'm going to make this cut really quick, and I'm not wearing a vapor mask, but I'm making a really quick cut. And what you guys can't see is that directly over my head, right over here, pointed right at my head, I have an air conditioning vent that's blowing air. Actually, it's warm enough. I actually have the air conditioning on right now. So that actually blows a lot of the glue fumes and a lot of these nasty fumes away from me. But it's off camera, so nobody can see it. The best way you can see it is like whenever I'm trying to solder something, you might actually see the wisps of solder smoke run off in that direction. But there, I just used the side of the what is this? I used the side edge of this particular wood burning tip to make the little trough here. Pointing at the right camera, good. So it's just a little panel line, and what I want to do with this wraps around right here like that. And all this gets painted like metal. This is going to stay stained wood. So put some glue on those, and then I can glue the front on. What did you see, Joe? Here.
Oh, don't mind me.
Oh, okay.
I was just checking something out.
Okay. So, real quick, as part of wrapping up here, is a live stream fun? Is it entertaining to have me babble away while I'm trying to work on something, while I burn myself and cut parts wrong? Do my best to answer questions. I promise once I get some contact lenses that I can actually read the computer, I'll do it slightly better. But honestly, this thing's still flying by fast enough, the comments, that it's kind of hard to keep up with them. No, I'm not complaining. Thank you guys for watching. But if I was to do this on a regular basis, would that be entertaining for you? So let me know. We'll go through the comments afterwards a little bit. Okay, I got both ends on there. What I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and cut. Now the cutting edge for the axe extends a little past on both directions, right? Because the curve has to keep going through the cutting edge and keep going through the cutting edge, which means I don't want to take the foam and stick it equal with it, because it's not going to be there. I need to go a little bit above it, so I have material to cut into to keep that cut going. And then hopefully I've got enough triangle piece here. Gotta squeeze this a little bit because this is a little bit thicker. There we go. This is the cleaner side that I didn't actually. I double glued the axe head, so I'll have to take some solvent and clean that off. But I will need to wear a mask for that, so didn't want to bother to do that right now. So all my knives and the cutting mat and everything else came from Excel Blades. They were super nice and sent a bunch of stuff to me. I'm actually out of the real Excel Blades for this anymore. This is an Alpha blade. And I was really, really happy with Alpha until I had Excel Blades. Now I miss my Excel blade. I need to order some from them. I just miss it because they finally wore out. You know, things wear out, right? There we go. Kind of like that. And I can do that to the other side. Where I can see it. There it goes. How crooked is that? Oh, that's pretty crooked. There we are. That'll give me a cutting edge. In the art, there's actually a nick down here. I'll probably put that in because it's supposed to be there. That'll wait. Now there's this piece. Oh, some paragraphs are going by again. Calabash is saying, hey, hi Odin, big fan. I'm considering getting into prop making. Any recommendations for someone who's new and only has access to wood and metal, but who is new and only has access to wood and metal, but does not have access to power tools? Oh, but does have access to power tools. Wow, I read that backwards a couple of times. So what you're trying to say is you don't have access to foam? Well, some of the ideas would follow through, but as far as how I do it, if you're only going to be working with metal and foam, man, I wish I remember the name of the channel. There was a guy that I was just recently watching that made a Dr. Doom mask from metal, and he used no power tools. He used an 8-inch metal shear that I think I saw online for like $96, and cut up a Dr. Doom mask. So he used the 8-inch metal shear. He used a blunt chisel to make some of the bends, and a Dremel to clean up some of the ends, and made a really good-looking Dr. Doom mask. That was kind of a mix of a couple of different ones that then had some of the perforated metal that's got holes in it for breathing, and it was just riveted together. And it wasn't pop rivets. He actually took real rivets with a rivet setter and put it together. So the tools he used was the metal shear, the Dremel, and a heavy-duty hole punch, which is like $30 for a good one. So yeah, it's interesting. Maybe other channels, and as far as projects, think about what you're doing, and if you're used to working with metal, then you should be able to figure out how to make things going around it. I assume you're not asking how to like set up a forge and cast stuff. That's not something I've done. I've poured hot lead once. It worked, but I've done it once. I was making ballast, basically. I was making a counterweight for a boat rudder, because I had to put some weight into it, because what I was making was a swing rudder for my I've got a 17-foot McGregor project boat. It has a big 6-foot rudder that's just a giant piece of fiberglass wood, and when you're first going off the boat launch, it drags because it's just so long. So by cutting a hinge into the middle of this 6-foot rudder, you can make a swing rudder that actually swings up and down. So I'm not trying to maneuver this giant paddle once I'm actually out in the water. I can just drop the rudder and go. So I had to put lead in the bottom of that to actually make it sink. Looks like it's going to work. That project hasn't been finished yet. I actually haven't been out on my boat in 5 years. It's in the back. It's in the sun, doing the whole, boat sitting on the trailer thing like boats do. All right. That is as far as I'm going to get built on this during this particular live stream. I'll be putting more effort into the axe. This is going to be the prop for next Wednesday's episode. So if you watch this right now, me building this right now, that was real time, me actually doing this. So I want to say thank you to everyone who's watching. I'll take a look at a couple more questions here, but I'm going to be signing off in just a minute. Mr. Sir says, hello, Odin. Would you recommend me buy power tools for wood carving? I have a chisel set, but I don't know if power tools would be a good investment. Okay, so I've been listening to a lot of Adam Savage recently, and I'll absolutely say what he said, which is if you want to try using a rotary tool, because that would be the next thing for me, right, is go to Harbor Freight Tools and get their $20 rotary tool. It won't last long. I've had that tool before, and it lasted a few months on foam, maybe 6, somewhere around there. If you look at some of my older videos, it was the blue and orange one at that time. And it gave up the ghost because that's what Harbor Freight Tools do. And they're great. They're great learning tools. They're great tools to know if that tool is going to work for you. And then if that power tool does work for you for working with wood, which I've seen plenty of other people use Dremel and Dremel bits on wood, then you can go out and get a Dremel, or the one I got on Amazon on some special Friday deal that was like an incredible price. Most of the bits that came with that $20 unit for Harbor Freight will still work with your Dremel, and then you could get a better tool. But at the same time, if it doesn't work, if there's something about it that doesn't work with having the motor in your hand, or doesn't work with your working style, then you're only out $20. You're out less than the amount of money it would take you to go to the movies. And so that's probably really good advice. And I like the way he said that. Canned Tuna is asking me if I can recommend some contact cement alternatives. It isn't available where he is. Unfortunately, I don't know of very many. Rubber cement is effectively a contact cement, but it's not nearly strong enough to hold the foam together. It may be hard to find contact cement, and especially with international names. I've ended up seeing some cosplay supplies like from the UK that it's not called contact cement, but you get into the description and it's contact cement, and they'll say it in the description. But what the glue is, they call it some other type of adhesive. Hopefully that's what you're running into. I'm sure there are places where you just flat can't get it, but I'm not aware of any outright bans. California would be the one that would have it, outright bans on contact cement. So no, I don't know, but I do know from a little bit of looking around that I have found it in different places in different countries. And I would look online for cosplay supply, my regional area, and you might be able to find something. Okay, this is great. So Gnome Child, this will be the last question I'm going to do here. Gnome Child says, "Hey Odin, love your content. Thanks, especially the Bane mask recently." And Gnome's question is, whatever happened to DIY Prop Shop with me, Vinny, and Hendo that got them into making props in the old days? Okay, great. So DIY Prop Shop. I was working for Smosh, and Smosh was part of Defy Media. Defy Media had multiple different channels, and one of them was DIY Prop Shop. So since I had already proven myself and I was already on the payroll with Defy Media, I became a guest host when Dustin left DIY Prop Shop. And then Vinny came in as well. So Vinny and I came in at the same time, and Hendo came in a little bit later. There's a couple of people in between. Whatever happened to it, Defy Media mismanaged themselves totally into the ground and dissolved as a company. Smosh ended up getting bought out by, I shouldn't say bought out, more like rescued, by the folks who run Good Mythical Morning. There's some people who are still making content for Break.com and for DIY Prop Shop-ish builds where they're doing more. It's just the hands building stuff. That was mostly the camera person who shot most of the stuff that Vinny and Hendo were doing, because they were doing all their productions in Beverly Hills, where I'm doing all of mine up in Sacramento. I would just deliver them finished product. So what happened to DIY Prop Shop? It was part of a larger group that spent more money than they made, and it ceased to be. What's happening with it right now? I don't know who's got the rights to it. I don't know who's getting the residuals from it. But if whoever's got a hold of it wanted me to make more content for them, I probably would, because that's where I got started. So I very much enjoyed DIY Prop Shop. I really enjoy Odin Makes. I'm really happy that all of you have came by and watched me babble for 2.5 hours today. I really appreciate that. I'll see you again next week on another live stream, and this video will be out next Wednesday. So thank you all very much for tuning in. Stay safe, and talk to you guys later. How do I click stop? End stream.
All right. You're not ended yet. There you go.
There we go. It's